Shalom to the nation of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I am Elder Chaarash Allah. This is Officer Yakor. And of course, welcome to our first annual destruction of Nicanor. We're going to be celebrating. Of course, we're going to go into the scriptures, man, and get a little history, on this great feast that, we're definitely going to be keeping. Of course, this feast does occur in the 12th month on the 13th day of the month Adar. So, of course, right now we're in the evening of the 13th day. All right, the beginning of it. So we're definitely going to, give all honor and praise and glory to the Heavenly Father for always delivering our nation, man, from such great, destructions, man, that could have possibly come upon us, right? So we know throughout our history, there were many captivities, millions of our people, what I'm saying, have died or whatnot, due to the violation and the transgressions that our people in. But there are also other instances where the Most High shows, our nation mercy. Okay, so tonight, we're going to go into an example of that, and then of course, tomorrow night going into the Sabbath, we're also going to have the Feast of Purim, okay, which also again, we're definitely going to be celebrating another feast, man, of great deliverance, right, out of the hands of our enemies, okay. So of course, for Purim, you're dealing with the Persians and the Medes, okay, and of course, now we're dealing when we're dealing with the destruction of Nicanor, we're in the Greek captivity, okay. So now, of course, just to get a little brief history on the Greek captivity and what was going on, during the Greek captivity. Of course, we're going to go to first Maccabees chapter 1. All right. But first, I wanted to just go here real quick. Go to the book of Psalms 83. Let's open up to the book of Psalms 83, and let's get verse 1. Book of Psalms chapter 83 and verse 1.
Psalms 83 and 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace.
So this is King David, all right? So he's sitting there saying, of course, he's saying, keep not thy silence, O God, and hold not thy peace. Go ahead.
And be not still, O God.
And be not still, O God. So, of course, he's sitting there sending a plea up to the Most High, man, and asking him, like, Lord, do not allow, do not sit still, all right? Don't be silent, man, in the matters of, our nation. We're being afflicted, by our enemies, man, to our right and to our left, okay? So he's like, keep not thy silence, O God, and hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. Go ahead.
Verse 2, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
So he said, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. So they're making a heavy commotion. Go ahead.
And they that hate thee have lifted up their head.
So those enemies of the Most High, man, so those that hate the Most High, of course, now they're lifting up their heads in pride, all right, against the holy people, all right, and also against the Most High, right? Because remember, you touch the chosen children, you touching the apple of the Lord's eye, all right? So you basically touching the Most High himself. Okay?
Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones.
So he said they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, right? So these nations, man, have taken subtle counsel against the holy children, all right? And he says what? Read it again.
Verse 3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and
so taking crafty counsel against thy people, all right? Go ahead.
And consulted against thy hidden ones.
And have consulted against thy hidden ones. Who were the hidden ones? The children of Israel. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 4. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation.
So they said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. Why would they cut us off from being a nation? Read.
That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
So that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance, right? So these nations, right? Like they've always done. They always wanted to cut the very remembrance of the nation of Israel from the history books, right? But the Most High never allowed that to happen. Delivered us from the oppression of our enemies, no matter where we are in in the earth, right? He's done it, man, in many different occasions, right? The rebellions that you read about, you know what I'm saying, in the West Indies, from the rebellions here in the United States, the Lord has always given us some sort of deliverance or mercy. All right. So now we're just waiting for that final and great deliverance that the Most High Man is promising us. Okay. In these last days. So he says, they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. So let us kill them. Let us wipe them out from being a nation. So he said that the name of Israel, Yasha Allah, may be no more in remembrance. Many of our people still don't know who Israel is, even until this very day. So showing you that this is very true in what the nations have done. They cut the remembrance of Israel off from the memories of our people, right? But the Lord has put the spirit on us so that we will be able to come back and remember who we are according to this Bible. All right, let's read on.
Verse 5, for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
So they've consulted together. They come together in one consent, in agreement with one another, right? So this is something that all of our enemies have in common. They hate us, and that they want to see us destroyed, right? So that's why you'll see the UN, all of the nations of the UN, from the European nations, from China, the African nations that are there. You see all of those nations, man, who are up against us, and the Lord is going to list these nations, man, that are against us. Okay, so though they break down into different countries, you know what I'm saying, different states or whatever the case may be, they all still have the same progenitor and ancestors, all right, that hate us. Okay, so when you wondering why that China man is sitting there looking at you funny, looking at you like you beneath him, well, it's because he hates you and because he does not like you. When you see that white man, as though he may seem like he's cool, when you turn your back, right, and you don't hear anything that he's saying or whatever in the dark or whatnot, he's talking bad about you. He's calling you all type of niggas and everything, right? Because they hate you. Okay. Same thing with the Africans, man. They don't love you. They don't want you in their land, but they know they can benefit from you. You know why? Because they want to make money off of you, but still hate you. All right. The same thing that Esau does, right? You see all the brothers that's playing ball right now, man. They love us because we make money for them, but what? In the dark, they hate us.
And he's still a slave. Look at the owner with the Clippers. He sold that. The dude.
Yep, absolutely. So now read on. So they consulted together. They consulted together with one consent. Go ahead.
Psalms 83 and 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against thee. Go ahead.
The tabernacles of Edom.
So the tabernacles of Edom. All right. Edom, who we know as the so-called white man. All right. The Indo-European, the Caucasian, whatever name that you want to give them. Right. The man, he is not white. He is red, according to this Bible, according to the book of Genesis, chapter 25 and verses 25. The first came out red all over like a hairy garment. All right. So Esau, okay, who is the white man? That is the first nation that against the children of Israel, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Okay. So Edom, go ahead.
And the Ishmaelites of Moab.
The Ishmaelites, right? So you have the Ishmaelites who are against us as well, right? Which they will be called your Arabs, right? From Saudi Arabia, from Oman, from Yemen, you know what I'm saying? All the regions of the Middle East, man, wherever Ishmael is, North Africa, all through North Africa, Egypt, so on, all right? Ishmael, okay? He says of Moab, go ahead.
And the Hagarims.
The Hagarians, all right, go ahead.
Jabal.
Jabal. So he says from your whites to your Arabs to your Chinese to your Africans, all right, to another a sect of your whites, which is Gabal. Go ahead.
Mom,
Amon, which is like your Japanese. Go ahead.
and Amalek.
Amalek,
Amalek, like
Amalek, your fake Jews, which is just another branch of Edom. Go ahead.
the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
Absolutely. So your Hamitic nations, right? The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, right? Both of them are Hamitic. Okay. So you have a Hamitic people, then you have another a Hamitic city, okay, which was off the coast of Zidon. All right. So now you see that these are the enemies of the children of Israel, right? So you read this, you'll see like throughout the Bible, man, that these names are constantly mentioned and receiving their judgments, right? So the Lord said that he would, man, punish these various nations, man, for killing millions of our people. All right. So the Lord said he was going to deal with these nations, man, in that exact way, in that fashion. Okay. So now let's go to the book of Judges real quick. So this is another book that shows us how the Most High, delivers us, how he has delivered us, from our oppressors. Okay, over the years. All right. So let me see. Judges. I want chapter Judges chapter 2 and mm,
18 or 17. Delivered them from the hands of the enemy.
yes.
Judges. You want to start at 17 or 18?
Yeah, 17 is fine.
Judges 2 and
No,
17.
you know what? Actually, read verse. Start at verse 13. Yes.
Judges 2 and 13.
Go ahead.
And they forsook the Lord and served Baal and Ashtaroth.
So this is Israel, right? No sooner than they left Egypt, right? So they received the allotted land that was given to them, all right? So then as the second generation died off, you see that the next generation, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and so on, began to come up, and they did not know the Lord, so they began to serve these false gods, the gods of the nations that were within them, all right, and around about them. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 14, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel.
So the Lord's anger was fierce against the nation of Israel. Why? Go ahead.
And he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them.
Right, so he delivered them into the hands of spoilers, right, that spoiled them. So the Lord was angry with Israel. Why? Because they served other gods. All right, go ahead.
And he sold them into the hands of their enemies round about.
Absolutely. So the Lord began to sell our people into the hands of the enemy, meaning he gave them up, man. He took the power which he had gave our people, and then he gave us over into the enemies, right? So that strength, that might, and that power that we had to defend ourselves, the Lord basically took that away from us. All right. Just as you see, it's not within our people today. All right. The strength, the might, and the power, man, to defend ourselves, we don't have it. Right. We can barely defend ourselves. I mean, we could put up a good fight, maybe one or two of us, but to say that we have a military force and a power, right? We don't have that anymore.
But what's so sad is you have military forces dealing with gangbanging, but that's going against your own brothers. You know what I'm saying? So just to add that.
Absolutely. So so you have all of these different gangs and that are affiliated, that are organized and whatnot, but they just destroying one another, like my brother just brought out, man. But us being a force, a powerful nation, you know what I'm saying, to be able to defend ourselves against those who come up against us, we don't have that might anymore. Go ahead.
So that they could not any longer stand before their enemies.
So that they could what?
No longer stand before their enemies.
So that we could no longer stand before any of our enemies, right? So any nation that came up against us, man, they laid the hammer down on us, man. That was it. Israel was done for because the Lord gave us over, man, into the hands of our enemies, right? That's why David said in the Psalms, man, keep not thy silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 15. Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil.
Look at that. So when Israel went out to war, He says the hand of the Lord was against them. Lord on the side of of our enemies, right? Need more strength to come and destroy us. As you still see, man, even until this very day, our enemies still destroying us, and we still ain't able to do nothing about it, right? Of King David, you know what I'm saying? When Israel was at it, was coming back into his power, right? You see that the two messengers that David has sent to the, I believe, the Moabite king, you know, and the king had, you know, ripped their garments into two and shaved their beards off, man. What did David do? He said, muster the forces, man. We going to take these cats out. That's what we supposed to be able to do, man.
Right.
You know, to be able to defend ourselves, but we don't have that power. We don't have that type of might anymore. Just I'm gonna keep saying that. All right. But whenever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil. Go ahead.
As the Lord has said, and as the Lord has sworn unto them, and they were greatly distressed.
And they were greatly distressed. So the nations will come down on us and they just keep beating us. We wonder why we lose all of these military battles. Our people wondering now, man, why many of our brothers and sisters still getting shot and killed. It's 2017. Why are we still getting killed? Slavery is supposed to be over. President, things are supposed to be changing, but they're not changing. They're not changing for the better. They changing for the worse. But go ahead.
Verse 16. Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them.
Key into that, because that's very important. You're going to understand when we go into the history of the Maccabees, how the Lord is doing the exact same thing, and he will do the exact same thing again, even in our time. All right. So it says, nevertheless, what?
Nevertheless, the Lord raised up the judges.
Nevertheless, the Lord raised up the judges, right? So these were rulers, men who the Most High had appointed, man, to govern his people as leaders. All right. To defend our people, man, and to make those decisions, man, that our people could not make. All right. Go ahead.
Out of the hand of those that spoiled them.
And these were the ones that delivered our people from the hands of those who spoiled us, all right, and destroyed us. So these men, their specific purpose was to get the nation back, get the men of Israel together, follow the Most High, and lay the smash down on our enemies. But the Lord, as you can see, he used these men to deliver our people. Go ahead.
Verse 17, and yet they would not hearken unto their judges.
Look at that. He said, but yet they wouldn't even hearken unto the judges, man, that the Lord appointed them. Go ahead.
But they went a whoring after other gods.
But they still stayed. Our nation still stayed on that same old whole story, going after the gods of the other nations, man. That's why when you read the book of Ezekiel, chapter 16, the Most High talked about that. Israel opening up his legs for all wind of doctrine. Doctrine could come into Israel, man, and there was no limit. All right. We would give presents and gifts, man, to hear the strange doctrines that these nations will come with. And we will perform these doctrines even that, you know what I'm saying, were giving us their garbage. All right. But push aside the commandment of the Lord, right? So this is what the Lord was saying, man. So just like, you know, the prophets of the Lord, even today, it's going out telling our people, man, look, not follow the ways of America, right? The paganistic ways of America, I'll say, right? But you got to turn back into the laws of the Lord, man. So you got judges now telling you this. You got judges now telling you, you know what I'm saying? But yet, they will not hearken unto the judge. They did not hearken unto the judges, just like they don't hearken unto the judges that are given to them now, right? Go ahead.
And one of the main things, like as far as like dealing with other gods, people idolize money. Esau do, they will offer you a nice amount of money to work on the Sabbath day. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I can't turn that down. I got to get that money on the Sabbath. Israelites that do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's just, you know, turn your eyes and your mind away from the statute, laws, and commandments of the Most High.
Go ahead. Yeah, verse 17.
Verse 17, and yet they would not hearken unto their judges, but they went a whoring after other gods and bowed themselves unto them. Right. Out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord.
Absolutely. So as you said, man, turn quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in, obeying the commandments of the Lord, but they did not so. So they didn't know after they be pointed in the right direction, then they just go right back to doing what they was doing, serving Baal, serving Astaroth, planting groves, worshiping the stars, doing all of that stuff. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 18, and when the Lord raised them up judges, the Lord raised them up judges, and the Lord was with the judges and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge.
So them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge, right? So when the Lord will raise these men up, then the Lord will be with that particular judge, okay? So everybody will know that the anointing of the Heavenly Father was on this man, okay? So then it says, out of the hand of the enemies all the days of that judge, all right? So as you can see, as you go and continue reading, so it says like that's when it said, all right, they had like 20 years of peace, all right, after being afflicted for like 20 years, right? Then they would have like a 40 years of peace, however long that judge was alive, you know, that's how long Israel would have peace. But when that judge died, then they would go right back into wickedness. All right, go ahead.
Repented the Lord because of the groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them.
And the Lord would have compassion on his people, man, because he would see them going through all of the hell, man, and the trial and the tribulation, you know what I'm saying, and the oppression that the nations was putting on them. All right. So they was laying the hammer down on them. They was killing them in the streets. Whatever the nations do, the same thing that you see that's happening to our people now. You think brothers getting shot and gunned down by white police? You know what I'm saying? You don't think the sword was being laid down to your forefathers back then? Absolutely. And bodies laying in the street, like when you read in the history of Tobit, man, brothers' bodies was literally laying in the streets, and he would go and bury those bodies out there, uncovered, for the vultures to eat. You understand? But go ahead. So this is what. So that's why I say it repented the Lord because of their groaning for the reason of them that vex, that oppress and vex them. All right. So that's why the Lord will send a judge. All right, to judge his people. Okay.
Verse 19, and it came to pass when the judge was dead that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers.
Look at that.
In following other gods to serve them and to bow down unto them. Look at that. They cease not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn ways.
Not from their own doings, nor from their stubborn ways, man. So after that judge was dead, that was it. They go right back into the wickedness, man, that they had been doing. All right, that their fathers were doing, but even more. Okay, we'll read on.
Verse 20, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, because that this people have transgressed my covenant, which I commanded their fathers, and have not hearkened unto my voice. I will, so like I also would not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died.
So all the nations, man, that was still there, uprooted out of the land, only had the land for themselves. Lord no longer moved those nations out. All right, they stayed there. Go ahead.
Verse 22, that through them I may prove Israel the way of the Lord to walk therein, as their fathers did keep it or not.
So the Lord said to prove our people, all right, to see whether they're going to follow the Most High or not. Okay, so they were basically used. All right, so they were used as a test for us. Okay, just like they still are even to this day, man. That's why I don't understand why our brothers and sisters sitting there worried about the other nations. Why you worried about the white man? Why you worried about the African? Like those your brothers and sisters who's on the street selling themselves, man, prostituting, pimping, selling drugs, dope dealers, still in prison, doing homosexual rituals and all of that stuff, man. In the industry selling their soul. You still got all of these people of your own people that you know are your flesh and blood that you need to save, but yet you want to worry about the other nations, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess it's just me. I guess it's just me, man. But anyways, let's go to let's go to Maccabees, Book of Maccabees. So again, so the Lord always, gave us deliverers. All right, He always put deliverers, man. Over the nation of Israel. Okay, so remember, going into the time of the kings after the period of the judges was over, then you had the kings, the kingship that began to occur. Saul being the first. He delivered Israel out of the hands of them that vexed them, all right, the Moabites, the Edomites, you know what I'm saying, the Hamitic nations that were there. Saul, man, he fended off all of those nations, man, with only 600 men until he massed a force of almost 200,000 men. You see, rebuilding the army of Israel, going into the era of King David, man, 1,500,000, right? A nation of warriors, okay? Hey, we were able to defend ourselves, but we still had the God of Israel, man, to defend us in every single battle in which we fought, because we understood, man, if the Most High was not behind us, our victories were in vain. No victory for us. That's why you see David always gave thanks to the Most High, man, when he was going in and when he came out. All right. So that's why the people love David, man. And it shows you the perfect balance, man, of a spiritual leader and a warrior at the same time, man. That balance that David had, truly. Okay, so going then after David, then you have many of the other kings, man. Then you began to see the kingship began to dwindle down, and the Most High began to be more against the nation of Israel than to deliver His people. So there are other instances, of course, that the Lord did deliver His people. Like during the time of Hezekiah, I believe He delivered them from the hands of Sennacherib. You know what I'm saying? Of Sargon, one of them, and they had a force of 185,000 men, man, that was coming up against them, right? The Lord smote the entire camp of the Assyrians, man. Israel ain't really have to lift up a sword or nothing. All they have to do is go clean up, So the Most High, man, shows us that He'll always be there for us if we continue in righteousness, all right? The examples, man, that are being left to us so that we'll understand when it's truly our turn to be oppressed and afflicted, that we'll cleave unto the Most High, man, and and pray to the God of Israel that He will deliver us, man, from the affliction and the oppression that's going to happen to us, all right, in these last days. Okay. First Maccabees chapter 1, it started verse 1. So just briefly go through that and touch on that a little bit, and then of course we'll go into the chapter pertaining to the destruction of Nicanor. Absolutely, go ahead.
Book of Maccabees, chapter 1 and 1.
Maccabee meaning hammer. It's a Greek word meaning hammer. The first book of the hammer.
It happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of Persians and Medes.
Also, it just so happened now. All right, this was prophecy that has come to pass now in the book of Daniel, chapter 7. It was prophesied in chapter 8. It was also prophesied in a vision that was seen by Daniel that this man here will come into power and rule the world at this time. Okay.
That he reigned in his stead the first over Greece.
So this was Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian. Macedonian meaning highlanders, all right, or tall or slim ones, okay. So these were mountain dwelling peoples, okay. So now it says, which came out of the land of Chittim, Chittim meaning Greece, and he says, so this is Darius III, who was the last king of the Persians and Medes before the Greeks conquered Persia. Go ahead.
And made many wars and won many strongholds.
So this man made many wars, right? So the time that he left Greece, right? So he had to put down many rebellions that were in Greece. He had to fortify his army. Then once he crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor, he began to conquer many of the nations as he went. Go ahead.
Strongholds and slew the kings of the earth.
Right, and slew many of the kings of the earth, right?
Verse 3, and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations.
So all of the nations that he took spoil of that were in Asia Minor, they were in Asia Minor, Tyre, Zidon, going going into the Levant, which is Israel, to Egypt, took many spoils, many of the nations, man, slew many kings, man.
Insomuch that the earth was quiet before him.
So that the earth was quiet before him, meaning that there was no nation that could deal with the power and the might, man, that the Greeks possessed. All right, the phalanx was untouchable at a particular time. Go ahead.
Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up.
So this is how prideful that this man was. Real quick, go to the book of 9 to verse 24. All right. So real quick, I just wanted to bring the scripture out. My brother's going to read it. Okay, so now he says he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. So he was very prideful, man. His dealings, all right. So of course, man, you have no army that can defeat you. You're the most excellent strategist. You know what I'm saying? That was known even before the time of Hannibal. You know what I'm saying? So Alexander was the cream of the crop, man, of his day. Okay. So he was one of the most, toughest generals, man, that was out there at the time. Go ahead, read that.
Job 9:24.
Yes.
Job 9:24. Into the hand of the wicked.
So the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. All right. So this is now given into the Edomite. So now they have conquered what we know as the earth at this particular time. All right. So from what we know as Greece, going all the way to India, Egypt, and Iran, Iraq, all of those regions, man. Alexander controlled everything. Okay. So he slew all of the different kings. All right. So now that was it. You can drop that. So let's go back to Maccabees.
1 and 4.
Go ahead.
And he gathered a mighty strong host.
So he gathered a mighty strong host. Go ahead.
Countries and nations and kings.
Absolutely. So he said strong host, so his army, okay, which he had, all right, were basically pretty much the best that he had, all right, that had been in many wars with him while he was in Greece. Okay, so they say that Alexander conquered the known world with what we know as 40,000 men, right, which was basically unheard of. Okay, but so it says, and he ruled over countries, right? He ruled over nations, all right. So he ruled over countries, all right, that the countries that you see over there today, he ruled over them. As I said, Greece, Cypher, Asia Minor, which is like modern day Turkey. He ruled over the Levant, which is Israel, Egypt, parts of Arabia, so on and so forth, right? So those are the areas which this man ruled, and particularly, and then it said nations, meaning peoples, all right. Then it says, and kings, okay, which what?
Who became tributaries unto him.
Who became tributaries unto him. So those kings that didn't want to die, they didn't want to lose their head, they didn't want their armies to be completely destroyed, they submitted to this man and made sure that they gave this man presents. All right, go ahead.
Verse 5, after these things he fell sick, he should die.
So he said after this he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Remember, the Greeks were known for their homosexuality and pedesty, right, which was their boy love, all right, or basically pedophilia. Okay, they were known for this. All right, so go ahead.
Verse 6, wherefore he called his servants honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
Right, so he parted his kingdom into 4 parts, right, which is called tetrarch. Okay, so by him parting his kingdom into those 4 parts, all right, you had Egypt, you had what we know as Syria, then you had Greece, and then you had, what was the other one? I said Egypt, Syria, Greece, and Babylon, I believe. So those are just some of the provinces in which, which he had control of, all right? So now, which he had parted. Okay, so now.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule over everyone in his place.
Right, so his servants bear rule everyone in his place. So wherever his 4 generals were located, that's basically where they set their kingdoms were pretty much set up.
And verse 9 is where it really gets. Verse 9.
Check this out. It gets really what that Job 9:24 goes into. This is where it really comes in. All right, go ahead.
Verse 9. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years.
So they began to set up dynasties, all right? They began to call themselves great kings, okay? So they broke off from what we know as Alexander, right? Who was basically the first king over the nation of the Grecians. Of course, they began to form their own dynasties, as they say. Go ahead.
I'll start from the top. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied into the earth.
And evils were what?
Multiplied into the earth.
And evils were multiplied earth. All right. So this is when everything just began to become completely wicked. All right. So we know that the earth at this time went through a process called Hellenization. Okay. So where the Greek culture, fashion, was pretty much, man, saturated in what we know as the Middle East. Okay. So, all of those areas from, what we know is like modern day Iran, Turkey, Egypt, all of those places, man, were saturated, man, with the Greek culture, all right, which was a process called Hellenization, okay? Nations were Hellenized, all right? So now you're going to see the affliction and the oppression, man, that begins to befall the children of Israel by the hands of this man named.
Verse 10, and there came out of them a wicked root, surnamed Epiphanes.
So Antiochus, whose surname was Epiphanes, meaning manifest of God or manifestation of God. So he believed that he was God, all right, in the flesh. Go ahead.
Son of Antiochus the king, who had been in a hostage at Rome.
So he was son of Antiochus the third, all right. Great. Go ahead.
And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Absolutely. So this was like around approximately like 175 BC that this man came into power. Go ahead.
Verse 11, in those days went there out of Israel wicked men.
So in these days, there went out evil men, wicked men in Israel. Go ahead to do that. Did what?
Who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us.
Right. So these wicked began to persuade many of our people to go and to make covenants once again with the nations that were round about them, right? So remember, the Lord said in his law, seek not their peace nor their prosperity all, forever, right? So we're not supposed to go to them, to receive any type of benefit or anything like that, man, because he knew that we could operate on our own independently, to rely on the nations that you are up under at that point, right? You become, what is it? Independent, not independent, but dependent. You become dependent upon their systems. All right, just like you see now, we're dependent upon the American system. How we, how we go to the American system for everything, man, because our people are just so damn lazy now. All right, so that's where you get the county building, the county from the GO. All of those are programs, man, that that Esau provides for us, or the American government provides for our people, right? You know what I'm saying? Though it's a temporary relief for certain situations, man, but you have our people who solely depend upon it, right? And cut it off, man. That's when the situation just becomes, man. So now you see our people, man, they'll do anything before they let themselves starve. You know what I mean? So they'll sell themselves for nothing, as the scriptures say. So that's why, the Lord told us, man, to operate independently, man, from these nations, okay? But you see that these men want to take the nation back, you know what I'm saying, the independency, man, upon the nation. Go ahead.
Let's start from the top.
Yeah,
in those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
So they said, since we departed from the Greeks, man, we've much sorrow, man. Go ahead.
Verse 12. So this device pleased them well.
Right. So, and that was true, man. Because remember, many of the times, man, many of the Jews were still being oppressed. They were still being afflicted, being carried off into captivity. You know what I'm saying? Into other parts of the Greek Empire. So this was happening. They were still being oppressed. Okay. But go ahead. So I'm sorry. So verse 12 it said the device pleased them well. All right. So many of the Israelites, they did consent to, you know what I'm saying, what their sellout leaders or Uncle Toms was saying. Okay. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Then
I'm sorry, wait a minute. So you did have like your Ben Carsons, you know what I'm saying, back in the day too, man. Exactly. So you had that same type of spirit, you know, right here, even until this very day. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Then certain of the people were so forward therein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen.
Mm-hmm. So you say, so they had men, man, who were so forward, man, that they went to the nations, man, to, you know, to get license and permits, man, to do after their works, to do after their ordinances, right? So remember, I told you that the Greeks, man, they were into homosexuality and they were also into pedophilia, right? So of course they believed in exercising in the nude and things of that nature, bathing each other, man. These were men that were doing this. All right. The woman stayed at home, did her thing, but the men were the ones that were out doing the most evilest things. All right. So, you know, so you had our people wanting to build places, right, to make money, man, and to generate money for themselves, you know what I'm saying? But this is what they sold out to do. All right, go ahead.
Verse 14, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
Right. So when you look at that place of exercise, that's dealing with them wrestling in the nude, shall I say, right? They were literally had in Jerusalem, the city of God. This is the city of the Most High, man, where the temple is, okay? Where our people will conduct the worship of the Heavenly Father. They built places of exercise, meaning this is where they would exercise naked, all right? Butt naked. And they would penetrate each other, all right? Swim parties, all of that stuff, man. Have young boys in there that they would penetrate. All of this stuff was going on in Jerusalem. All right. So this is what our fathers, man, you know what I'm saying? The wicked ones were selling themselves out to do, all right, to make a little money for themselves, right? And to live like their oppressors, okay, because they enjoyed the glory of the Grecian more than they enjoyed the glory of having their own heritage. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, enjoyed themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
So it said they joined themselves to the heathen, they were sold to do mischief. All right. So they began to follow all of the customs of the heathen, man, to see their people get over on their people, all of that, man. All of the wicked devices that you could think of, man, how our people were operating, they were doing it, man, to full capacity against their own, man. Whole part about it. And you see that spirit's still here today, man, even on our own people. All right. They still do the exact same thing just to get over on one another, whether it's dealing in drugs, whether it's sports, whether it's in business, whatever the case may be, man. Our people, we still get over on each other instead of helping each other rise to the occasion. All right. So was that it? Yeah. So now you see in the process of time, man, Israel began to be heavily afflicted by the Greeks. This man Antiochus Epiphanes, you know what I'm saying, who was the main culprit, man, in the affliction of the Jews. You know, I'm talking about, you know, this man, that man was a cannibal. You know, all of that, man. You read the history or the story of the woman and her 7 sons, man. This man cannibalized every single last one of those sons, man, and the mother as well. All right, chopped them up, put them in frying pans, man, and that's what they had. They feast, the feast of Bacchus and all of that stuff, man. That's what they were doing. They were killing Jews. All right, eating their flesh. Okay, so this is history, man, that they're not bringing out to you in the church, man. The Christian church is not trying to tell you, man, that yes, you know, these Greeks, they cannibalized Israelites, black Israelites. So they were eating black flesh, not white flesh. They were eating your people, Okay, this is what they were doing, man. That was the evils that they were committing, man. They were hanging children, throwing them over brick walls. These were all black children that they were doing this to, throwing them over brick walls because their mothers circumcised them. All right, raping the women, okay, raping the men, you know, killing the men, leaving their bodies out in the streets, man, for everybody to see. They were basically trying to turn Jerusalem into a graveyard. All right, they came and oppressed the Jews any given any given moment that they could. And not only that, you still had the sellouts of your own people that were doing the exact same thing to you as well. When we go read about Asimius and the evil that he was doing to his own people, and this was a man of the seed of Aaron. That is the cool part about it, man. So again, over a process of time, you had brothers that began to rise. Let's read chapter 2, starting at verse 1.
First Maccabees 2:1. In those days rose Mattathias, the son of John, and the son of Simeon, a priest of the son of Jared, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Modin. And he had 5 sons: Jonan, called Cadus, Simon, called Dicey, Judas, who called Maccabeus, Eleazar, called Avaran, and Jonathan, whose surname was Apus.
Absolutely. So these were the sons of Mattathias. Okay. So he had 5 sons, 5 valiant warriors. Okay. All right. So you see the names that stand out the most. You had Jonan, you had Simon, and you also had Judas. All right, Eleazar, and you had Jonathan. Okay, Jonathan, Simon, and Judas, man, those were the sons who were the forces to be reckoned with. All right, so those men became the leaders of our nation during this time as our people were being afflicted. Now check this out. Okay, the Lord used this family, man, this Levitical family, to deliver, all right, our people out of the oppressive hands of who we know as the Greeks. Okay. So now let's read on.
Verse 6. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me, wherefore I was born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered into the hand of the enemy, the sanctuary to the hand of strangers. Her temple was become as a man without glory. Her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy.
Now check this out. So now you see, this is what Mattathias is seeing with his own eyes, the oppression of his people. These are the same things that we're seeing with our very own eyes, our own people, right? So now, as he said, her glorious vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. And it says her young men with the sword by the enemy. This is everything that Mattathias was seeing, man, that was happening. Go ahead.
Verse 10. What nation have not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils?
Right. So what nation have not had a part in taking the spoils of our people, man? Not only as slaves, but also the riches that we had, all of that, man. What nation has not partaken of that? All right, in the destruction of our people. Go ahead.
Verse 11. All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman, she's become a bond slave.
So she once a free woman, now she become a bond slave. All right. Our people were acting independent at one point. Then guess what? They became slaves in such a short period of time, man. So this is what the Greeks was doing to our people, man. This was the misery that Mattathias was witnessing with his very own eyes, all right? His family was from Modin, okay, which is not that far from what we know as the city of Jerusalem, all right? So now drop down and read verse 24. So going into the story a little bit more, when you read up from verse 24, it's going to show you that Modin was one of the cities that was on the list to where, the officers would come and they would make that city conduct sacrifices, right? So Mattathias and his family, man, they were asked to make the abominable sacrifices upon the altar. Mattathias, he reneged. He's like, nah, I'm not doing that. All right, you can kill me, do whatever you got to do, but I am not profaning, you know what I'm saying, the name of my God, nor myself. All right. So then what happened? You had a Ben Carson, a sellout,
And
right?
Obama. Obama said the same thing Ben Carson did.
You had one of them come up and say, I'll do it. I'll sacrifice the animal. I'll sacrifice it to save everybody. But check this out.
First Maccabees 2:24. Which thing when Mattathias saw he was inflamed with zeal,
Mm-hmm.
and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to shew his anger according to judgment.
Absolutely. So he said, neither the scripture said, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment, man. So the spirit of the Most High was coming upon this brother, just like you would see him come upon the judges, man. So the same thing that you see that Mattathias will see, these judges will also witness it with their very own eyes, the oppression and the plight of their own people. All right. And then that spirit will come on them, man, to where they be like, this is it. Now check this out. Watch what Mattathias does.
Wherefore he ran and slew upon the altar.
He slew that Uncle Tom upon the altar. That's what he did. Go ahead.
Verse 25. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time.
So he killed the king's commissioner too. He won't spare nobody, right? He killed him. Okay, go ahead.
He killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus dealt the jealousy, like as Phinehas did unto Zambri, the son.
Absolutely. So just like Phinehas, just like he did, man, unto Zambri, which is I believe Carmi, in the book of, and I believe it's in the book of Numbers, man, where he had killed him, who was a prince of Simon, man, for taking that heathenish woman. You know what I'm saying? And he jabbed him through with a javelin. All right, which took away the reproach from Israel. All right, and the anger of the Lord was stayed. Okay, and the Lord made a covenant with this man. All right, so now read on.
Verse 27. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
He said, let him what?
Let him follow me.
He said, let him follow me. He said, with a loud, cry throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law. He ain't say the book of Enoch. He ain't say the book of Jasher. He ain't say the Dead Sea Scrolls. He said, for the law, right, and maintain the covenant, let him follow me. So he said, those brothers that want to follow the law, he said, follow me. This is what he said, man. So now, read on.
Verse 28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city.
So it said they fled to the mountains, right? And they left everything that they own, man, in the city, man. So it wasn't no looking back for them. They knew that they walked on some, man, that they knew that they could not get out of. All right. So in the process of time, you see that they went throughout the city, man. They began to kill many of the wicked Israelites. Then you see Mattathias in his old age. He's not as apt as his sons, so he dies, right? His sons take over. Jonathan is up first. Judas is up first, man. He takes the reins, man, and he crushes, all of the enemies of Israel, right? So now let's go to let's go to chapter 6. So we'll get to the point. Or you know what? Actually, chapter 7. So we almost had time anyway. So let's go to chapter 7 and verse 1. All right. So now, as I said before, you'll see that everything is now playing itself out. Antiochus is pretty much Epiphanes is already dead and gone. All right. Excuse me. You'll see that his son Antiochus Epitor or Antiochus V, he took power and he reigned, but then there's a problem that occurs, right? Antiochus, right, the fourth had a brother, okay, who was named, I believe, Demetrius, who was the son of Seleucus or Antiochus the third or Antiochus the Great. Okay, he had a son, and then he was in Rome. All right, because remember the Romans were up and coming and rising power, and they had their foothold in Greece. Okay, so what they would do is, you know what I'm saying, the war captives that they did have, remember they would leave a son there. All right, and that son would be the ransom for them to keep. Okay, to make sure that they held their end of the bargain. All right, so now let's read this, chapter 7, and starting at verse 1.
First Maccabees 7:1.
Go ahead.
In the 150th year, Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, departed from Rome and came up with a few men unto a city of the sea coast and reigned there.
Okay, go ahead.
Verse 2. And he entered into the place of his ancestors, so it was that his forces had taken Antiochus and Lysias to bring them unto him.
So he told them to bring themselves unto him. All right. So remember, he's basically going to claim rightful heir to the throne, pretty much. Go ahead.
Verse 3. Wherefore, when he knew it, he said, let me not see their faces. So his host slew them.
So he killed them before they got to him. Go ahead.
Now, when Demetrius was set up upon the throne of his kingdom,
so now he's reigning over what we know as the Seleucus Empire, all right, or dynasty now. Go ahead.
Verse 5, there came unto him all the wicked and ungodly men of Israel.
So these were all these treacherous, what you call them, politicians of our people, ambassadors, so on and so forth, man. Businessmen, the rulers, they were all of the treacherous ones, they went before the king, right? But check this out, go ahead.
There came unto him all the wicked and ungodly men of Israel, having Alchemist, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain.
Right, so now this man, Alcemius, he desired to be high priest, so he wanted the high priesthood for himself. So now you see why the Most High, man, had to pretty much, cancel that thing out, man, because now it became a position of vainglory now. It was no longer about the Most High, man. It was about who wanted to sit in the seat of power and kingship over Israel. And the high priest seat was that seat or that position that you had to have. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 6, and they accused the people to the king, saying, Judas and his brethren have slain all thy friends and driven us out of our own land.
Go ahead.
Now therefore send some men whom thou trustest, and let him go and see what havoc he hath made among us and in the king's land, and let him punish them with all them that did them.
So
that ate them.
Right. So now you see that the rebellion is full swing. So now they putting out the wicked Israelites. They slaying all of the armies that Antiochus had there, the garrisons. They putting them out of the land now. All right, that they're taking back or reclaiming, man. The land which they had. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Then the king chose Bacchides, a friend of the king, who ruled beyond the flood and was a great man in the kingdom and faithful to the king.
Go ahead.
And him he sent with the wicked Alcimus, who had high priest, who he made high priest.
So he made this man high priest. All right, go ahead.
And commanded that he should take vengeance of the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
So they departed and came with the great power into the land of Judah, where they sent messengers to Judas and his brethren with peaceful words deceitfully.
Right, so they tried to come with peace, right? But their peaceable words, they understood that they were coming with deceit behind those peaceable words. All right, go ahead.
Verse 11, but they gave no heed to their words, for they saw that they were come with a great power.
Right, so I'm like, you coming with peace, right? What the hell? 60,000 men right behind you for? So they already knew, man. It was already given that they was coming, man, to shed blood. But go ahead.
Verse 12, then did there assemble to Alcimus and Bacchides a company of scribes to require justice.
Go ahead.
Now the Assadeans were the first among the children of Israel that sought peace of them.
So I see the wealthy. Okay, so they went to seek peace. You know what I'm saying? With S.O.I.C and the rest of them. Go ahead.
Verse 14, for said they, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come with his army, and he will do us no wrong.
So they said, wow. They said, for they say one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron. So they said, you know, this is man the son of Aaron. Okay. So go ahead.
Verse 14, for they said one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come with the army, and he will do us no wrong.
He won't harm us. He won't do us any wrong. But were they wrong? Let's read.
Verse 15, so he spake unto them peacefully and swore unto them, saying he will procure them harm, neither of you nor your friends. Whereupon they believed him. Howbeit he took off the 60 men and slew them in one day, according to the words which he wrote.
Go ahead. So we killed these men. Go ahead.
The flesh of thy saints have thy cast out, and their blood have they shed around about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. Fear of dread of them fell upon all people who said, there is neither truth nor righteousness in them, for they have broken the covenant and oath that they made.
Absolutely. So we're talking about this serious man that pertaining to the high priesthood. Go ahead.
Verse 19, after this removed Thebes from Jerusalem and pitched his tents in Bezeth, where he sent and took many of the men that forsook him, and certain of the people also. And when he had slain them, he cast them into the great pit.
So he cast them into the great pit. Go ahead.
Then committed he the country to S.O.I.C and left him a power to aid him.
So he gave him that country, and that's the country that he was ruling over. Go ahead.
So S.O.I.C went to the king, but S.O.I.C contended for the high priesthood.
So he wanted that high priesthood. That's what his eyes were set on. All right, go ahead.
And unto him he restored all such as troubled the people, who after they had gotten to the land of Judah into their power did much hurt in Israel.
Go ahead.
Verse 23. Now when Judah saw all the mischief that S.O.I.C and his company had done among the Israelites, even above the heathen, he went out into all the coasts of Judea round about and took vengeance of them that had revolted from him, so that they durst no more go forth into the country.
Go ahead.
On the other side, when S.O.I.C saw that Judas and his company had gotten the upper hand and knew that he was not able to abide their force, he went again to the king and said all the worst of them that he could.
So it said that he knew that he couldn't stand before Judas, right? So he had to go back to the king. He said he had to get the worst of the worst. We talking about the most murderous, the most bloodiest of the men that he could find within their armies, all right? And they wanted to send them out against Judas and his men. All right, we talking about the professional killers. Go ahead.
Verse 26. Then the king sent Nicanor, one of his honorable princes, a man that bare deadly hate unto Israel.
So this is what Nicanor comes in. Deadly hatred for Israel. Go ahead.
With commandment to destroy the people. So Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great force, and his brethren deceitfully with friendly words, saying,
there you go again. Peaceably and friendly, right? But it's all vain, man. That's why, what does the scripture say? If he speaketh fairly, believe him not. Leave behind his heart are 7 abominations. Right. Go ahead.
Verse 28, let there be no battle between me and you. I will come with a few men that I may see you in peace. He came therefore to Judas, another peaceably. Howbeit the enemies were prepared to take away Judas by violence.
So they wanted to kill this man. All right, go ahead.
Verse 30, which thing after was known to Judas, to wit, that he came unto him with deceit, and he was sore afraid of him, and would see his face no more.
Go ahead.
Nicanor also, when he saw that his counsel was discovered, went out to fight against Judas beside Capharosama, where there were slain of Nicanor's side about 5,000 men, and the rest fled into the city of David.
Let's check that out. He says that 5,000 men of Nicanor's side, man, were destroyed, right, by Judas and his company. Okay. So then it's saying the rest of them, they fled their behinds into the city of David and Zion, right? So they fled back to Jerusalem. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 33. After this went Nicanor up to Mount Zion, and there came out of the sanctuary certain of the priests and certain of the elders of the people to salute him peaceably and to shew him the burnt sacrifice that was offered for the king. But he mocked them and laughed at them and abused them.
Basically, like, get that out of my face, man. I mean, he did what? He said he said what?
And abused them shamefully.
He said he abused them shamefully, man. Women in facing them. We talking about these are priests of the Lord. This man is insulting. All right. So go ahead.
And spake proudly, and swear in his wrath, saying, unless Judas and his host be now delivered into my hands, if ever I come again in safety to his house. And with that he went out in a great rage.
So now, if you ever seen white people, right, when they're just full of rage, right, they turn red and their eyes just get this bright blue, right? Yeah. Showing you that how angry they can get. So just imagine that this is how this Edomite is literally like angry. All right, go ahead.
Verse 36. Then the priest entered in and stood before the altar and the temple, weeping and saying, Thou, O Lord, didst thou choose by thy name, and to be a house of prayer and petition for thy people. Be avenged of this man, his host, and let them fall by the sword. Remember their blasphemies and suffer them not to continue any longer.
No.
So Nicanor went out of Jerusalem and pitched his tent in Bethhoron, where an host of Syria met him.
Go ahead.
But Judas pitched in Adasa with 3,000 men, and there he prayed, saying.
So remember, as I always love this insert, man, when he said that, Judas. It said that he prayed like a saint, but he fought like a lion. I'm talking about, man, when he sent up them prayers, he was sending up them prayers, right? But when he was in battle, he was like a lion. He was like a lion in rage. You couldn't stop him. Go ahead.
Verse 4. Well, I'll start. Verse
41.
Oh, yeah, I was just going back into it. O Lord, when they that were sent from the king of the Assyrian blasphemed, thy angel went out and smote 180 and 5,000 of them.
So now look at how he's giving a reaccount, man, and not only the deliverance, man, but how the Most High will fight for his people. Go ahead.
Verse 42. Even so destroy thou this host before us this day, that the rest may know that he have spoken blasphemously against thy sanctuary, and judge thou him according to his wickedness. So the 13th day of the month of Dar, the host joined battle.
So on this day, the day that we are celebrating this feast, right? This is when this battle occurred. Go ahead.
Nicanor's host was discomfited.
So they was basically discomfited. They scattered, man, because they couldn't handle the power and the madness of Judas and his men. Go ahead.
And he himself was first slain in the battle.
So he was the first one killed in battle. He stood there, like he said, man. What he said, he was gonna turn Jerusalem into a graveyard. But what? He slapped the priest of the Most High. He disrespected him. He spit on the Most High holy ground, talking blasphemous. What the Most High do? He said he's the first one that got killed. Go ahead.
So the 13th day of the month Adar, the host joined battle. But Nicanor's host was discomfited, and he himself was first slain in the battle. Now when Nicanor's host saw that he was slain, they cast away their weapons and fled.
They saw that.
They took him out first.
Man, they saw that. They saw the head of the snake.
They took
Guess what? They dropped them weapons and fled. We talking about. It said that they went to get the worst of the worst. You see what I'm saying? But when they seen him die, that's when they was like, "Oh man, we out of here. We can't handle these brothers." But that shows you, man, how powerful, you know what I'm saying? They said that this man took 3,000 men, all right? 3,000 men, and this can fit in an entire army, right? And put them to shame, killed their leader, right? Check that out. That's the power of the Most High. But read on.
Verse 45. Then they pursued after them a day's journey from Edessa to Gazera, sounding an alarm after them with their trumpets. Whereupon they came forth out of all the towns of Judea round about and closed them in, so that they, turning back upon them that pursued them, were all slain with the sword, and not one of them was left. Afterwards they took the spoils and the prey and smote of Nicanor's head, and his right hand, which he stretched out so proudly, and brought them away.
Yeah, you know what they did that we did with that right hand, right? It was like, you know what I'm saying, to the Most High, right?
Exactly.
That's why the Most High took that damn hand. Go ahead.
Which he stretched out so proudly and brought them away and hanged them up toward Jerusalem.
So it said they took that hand, and it's like they put it on display. Go ahead.
For this cause the people rejoiced greatly, and they kept a day of great gladness. Moreover, they ordained to keep yearly this day, being the 13th of Adar. Thus the land of Judah was in rest a little while.
Right, so we had rest just for a little while, man. So as you can see, on the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, you know what I mean, this was a feast that was ordained, all right, that we would celebrate, right? So this was the deliverance of the children of Israel out of the hands of this man Nicanor. With this man's hand off, his head and his hand, put it on display, all right? And all the people rejoiced because of this, man, because they knew and understood what this man Nicanor was all about, all right? So try real quick. I want to see if I can get this real quick. Hold on.
Saying Maccabees.
Yeah, saying Maccabees, and let me see. Go to 15.
First or second Maccabees?
Second Maccabees, chapter 15, and I want to get verse. Start at verse 25.
Second Maccabees 15 and 25. Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs.
So they was already celebrating, like they was already gonna win the battle, come out with their little war trumpet and songs. Go ahead.
His company encountered the enemies with invocations and prayer.
Right, so they were sitting there in prayer. Go ahead.
So that fighting with their hands and praying unto God with their hearts, they slew no less than 30 and 5,000 men.
Wait a minute, they did what?
So that fighting with their hands and praying unto God with their hearts, they slew no less than 30 and 5,000 men.
Tell me real quick, how many men did Judas have in battle that we read about?
3,000.
He had 3,000 men, right? And how many did they slew?
They slew no less than 30 and 5,000 men.
30 and 5,000?
No less. So that means that's the least.
You telling me with these 3,000 men that Judas had in his company, they slew 35,000 men, no less, right?
No less.
So showing you they had a greater force than what that 35,000 was, all right? And then they just basically killed off the rest of them, okay? Giving all honor, praise, and glory to the Most High power, man. You know, so let's continue reading. It gets better. It gets better.
For through the appearance of God, they were greatly cheered. Verse 28. Now, when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness.
So remember, he was the first one on his horse dead. Go ahead.
Then they made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language.
So he's praising the Hebrew language, man. Go ahead.
And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and mind, and who continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder.
So he said, I want his head, I want his head, and I want half of that gone. Go ahead.
And bring them to Jerusalem. So when he was there and had called them his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower.
Go ahead.
And shewed them vow Nicanor's head, and the hand that the blasphemer which with proud brags he has stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty.
Check that out. So, priest man that we had beat up on and all that, spoke shamefully at. Guess what? He brought them a little present. He brought them a little present. Go ahead.
And when he had cut out the tongue of the ungodly Nicanor,
now went a little further. They said they cut out his tongue. Go ahead.
And when he had cut out the tongue of the ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that this should give it by pieces unto fowls and hang up the reward of his madness before the temple. So every man prays toward the heaven, the glorious Lord, saying, blessed be he that hath kept his own place undefiled. He hang also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Lord. And they ordained all in no case to let the day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate with the 13th day of the 12th month. The Syrian tongue is called Adar, the day before Markadoshia's day. Mordecai's.
Before Purim, all right. Mordecai's day, okay. So before Purim, all right, you know, this day would be kept. So, you know, they were getting ready to go in Purim when this battle took place, right? And they cut off this man's head, arms, cut out his tongue, fed it to the fowl, right? Put his head on the tower and displayed it.
Verse 37, thus went it with Nicanor, and from that time forth the Hebrews had in the city their power.
So it said they had their power again. They weren't punks. They weren't scared anymore. They had the force of the Most High with them now. All right, go ahead.
And here will I make an end. I have done well, and as is fitting the story, it is that which I desire. But if I slenderly and meaningly, it is that which I could attain unto.
Go ahead.
It's hurtful to drink wine or water alone, and as wine mingled with water is pleasant, even so speech finely framed delighted the ears of them that read the story. And here shall be an end.
Right, so a glorious ending, man, to a powerful, you know what I'm saying, to a powerful book, all right? So this was in second Maccabees. You guys can definitely go ahead and check it out, man. You know, second Maccabees goes into a little bit more detailed and personal account of what was the things that was transpiring in first Maccabees. You know what I mean? So, you know, all praise to the Most High, man, giving him all the honor and glory, man, you know, for the magnificent deliverance which he delivered, man, you know, our enemies into our hands, man. So as you can see, man, you know, multitude of numbers, it don't matter. It don't matter to the Most High, man. You know what I'm saying? So as you can see, man, just the two of us, we could take out 13,000, man, if the Spirit of the Lord be with us. All right, with no problem. Okay. So I mean, other than that, man, all praises, all honor and glory again, you know, to the Most High. You know, just continue, man, to enjoy your destruction of Nicanor. Go read the story to your children. Let them know that the God of Israel is powerful and he's great. Side, all right. So, of course, you know, from Sons of Isaac Israelite Congregation, Elder Chaarash Allah, Captain Yaquar. Excuse me, I didn't call him Captain earlier, but he's Captain Yaquar. You know, we give a shout out to all of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and also to all the camps that are maintaining righteousness. All right. Definitely go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and share with your friends, your family members, man, and let them know, man, how powerful the God of Israel is. The Christian God is whack. All right. So with that,
also check us out on the website, Sons of Isaac, 144.org. That's the numbers, 144.org.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. Good website. More information coming up soon. More video content coming from us also as well. So, with that, we shall see you for Purim tomorrow. Shalom.
Shalom.